Welcome to the Addison Bowen podcast, where we talk about what it actually takes to hit your first six or multi-six figures in business. I'm Addison, certified clinical hypnotherapist and online business coach for entrepreneurs. And 3 years ago, I decided that nursing wasn't for me, dropped out of nursing school, and dove into the online space. From free hypnosis audios to unfiltered conversations and business advice, this is the space for you to take radical responsibility towards creating your dream business. Let's dive in. Okay, so we all know that launching gets a bad rap in the online space from some coaches, right? We've heard about evergreen launches. We've heard about live launching. We've heard about, like, if I'm an online service provider, do I even need to launch? Like, what does that look like selling offers? So today we're going to dive all into launching. I'm going to tell you the difference between evergreen launching as well as live launching and how launching has the potential to absolutely change your business. And we're going to talk a little bit about if you are an online service provider and you have monthly retainers in your business, what is the best way to launch? Should you even be launching? Should you be worrying about having a launch strategy? So let's dive in. I'm super excited for this episode. So I am no newbie to launching. Not only did my first launch in my business as a coach with my signature group program, the Visionary Accelerator, bring in about $30,000 to $5,000 in revenue the very first time I launched it into my business. But prior to that, being a online service provider as well myself and helping other coaches with launching services in their business, I actually found that being behind the scenes of a launch was much easier than being front facing and forward facing in launching. So I was an OBM myself. I was an online business manager. I planned out the behind the scenes of launches, worked with ad specialists for coaches. I did all of the things, put together all the deliverables, the sales pages, everything that is involved in launching a new offer in your business. And what I found was that having a very strategic and planned out launch is absolutely necessary in producing the results that you want to when it comes to launching. I've had so many people come into my space that are just like, I've been told to launch based on excitement, or I've been told to just like get really excited about my offer and talk about it every single day, and people will come in. But believe it or not, there's actually a very proven framework or strategy to launching a new offer in your business that involves buyer types and the way that you approach launching the offer, the way that you approach talking about the offer, the marketing behind it, warming up your audience to the actual new offer, et cetera, et cetera. And so, having the behind the scenes expertise in doing that with other coaches and then flipping the script and actually doing it myself was vastly different. So you guys know, and you've heard me talk about this a lot as well too, especially when I talk about my own story, that the reason I actually became a hypnotherapist and dove into mindset coaching and brought hypnotherapy into my business was because I went to launch my first group program and was absolutely scared shitless. It was one of the scariest things I've ever done. I remember, going to send out emails and being like, oh, should I actually press send on this? Should I actually schedule this out? Like, what if no one buys? Or going to talking about an offer on a live, or going to posting about something on my Instagram story, or posting a post, or getting on TikTok and talking about an offer, even down to creating a sales page and creating sales page copy and getting that out there was terrifying, because my thought process was, what if no one buys? And so I actually stopped myself from selling the thing. I actually stopped myself from putting things out there. So when I, prior to going through my first launch, again, I had a $35,000 launch, and most of that was because of my mindset. It wasn't because of some crazy strategy that I had put together. I wouldn't have been able to even do it without the mindset piece. So I found with my first launch with my signature program that I could have all of this strategy, right? I could have the perfectly mapped out sales page, the perfect social media content, the perfect emails. I could, have thousands of people on my email list. But if I myself was afraid of no one buying, or was afraid of actually selling the offer, or thought, what if I'm too salesy or whatever, that preemptively, my mindset behind that stopped me from actually doing the thing, stopped me from actually putting it out there. This is when I actually introduced myself to hypnotherapy. This is when I actually was like, I know that I need to do something different if I want to succeed in the online space, because I'm holding my own self back, right? So I actually started utilizing hypnotherapy and breathwork during this time, and coupled with the strategy that I had mapped out for my launch. Again, this is what produced the $35,000 launch. It wasn't just the strategy. It wasn't just the mindset and, and just hoping and manifesting, 5-figure launch. It was these two things coupled together. So I wasn't holding my own self back, but I also had the strategy to actually succeed. I knew that my offer was going to sell out. I knew that it was needed and wanted. There was strategy behind creating the offer. There was strategy behind marketing the offer. But again, I felt comfortable doing so and selling because I had worked on my mindset. So this is why I say that you can't have one without the other in business. You need the strategy and you need the mindset, and you need those things together in order to succeed. And I think the farther you get along in entrepreneurship, the more that you realize that. Now, I also do want to say that if you are someone in business, especially a newer coach who has yet to go through like a proper launch in your business, you have yet to like plan out a full launch. You have yet to have like an open cart, closed cart, and a full launch process in your business. I will say that the very first time you do it, it will be one of the scariest things that you ever do. So this is also me just validating you right now. If you've gone through a launch and you've, had moments where it's felt like it's failed, or you haven't fully succeeded the way that you've wanted to, or, you got scared and you held yourself back a little bit, like that is okay. Launching is not something that is like super easy or, known. When we go to college or when we're in a corporate job, we don't have to like know how to launch these offers and put ourselves out there and like literally put ourselves on the line that way, right? Or put ourselves in the position to fail. So it's okay if it feels hard the first time, but I promise launching is like learning a second language, just like marketing is like learning a second language. With time, as you practice, as you continue to put yourself out there, you will find that it will get easier and better with time. And you'll find that you'll look back on time periods in the past where you're like, why was I even scared? Like there is a proven way to do this. And I know and trust myself to produce the results that I want to in business. So let's dive into what the 3 main pillars that I believe are in launching, and then break those down a little bit further and really truly just dive into like, what does it actually take to create a 6 or a 5-figure launch in business? What does it actually take to really have the strategy in line to sell out an offer, but also like, what does it take in your mindset to be able to continue to show up even when things aren't working, right? Because there are going to be moments in business where things are not working. And I always say like the most successful people show up even when it's not working. The most successful people like produce results because they showed up when it's not working. And so that's also could be something that happens when you're launching in your business. And how do we move through that? How do we hold ourselves through that, right? We're going to talk about all of it and dive in. So the 3 main pieces to a really successful launch are having a killer mindset, having a killer strategy, and having a killer offer. And a lot of people are like, okay, is it negotiable that you have all 3? Like can I not work on my mindset? Can I just kind of like throw spaghetti at the wall with my strategy, right? And the answer to that is it's not negotiable. You have to have all 3 of these things. You have to have an offer that will sell out. And a lot of people really make the mistake of, creating just like throwing spaghetti at the wall again with like creating an offer as well too. They just kind of throw something together because they're excited about it, but they don't actually and haven't preemptively checked with their audience to even see if this is something that's needed. They haven't done the market research. They haven't done the research behind the scenes. They haven't pulled their audience. They haven't validated their offer, right? And so again, if we don't have an offer that, no one wants, it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter how much you sell it, how good your strategy is. If people look at the way that you articulate your offer, the transformation and the value that's inside and say, I don't really need that. I don't see the value in that. Like you're not going to create sales, right? But on the flip side, if we don't have the marketing strategy to articulate the value of the offer, even if it is something that is so needed and like literally changes lives, right? Like if we can't articulate it, no one is going to buy. And then on the flip side, if we have moments where things aren't working in our favor, or moments where we have to like show up through the void in business when no one's buying, that's what I like to call the time period where you feel like no one is buying, showing up through the void, then you're also going to struggle because you're not going to continue to show up and build that momentum and build that consistency. So it is absolutely non-negotiable to have all 3. So we're going to first talk about creating a sold out offer. What does that entail? What does that look like? And really talking about like, how do you actually get to the point of like knowing, okay, if I map out this offer, I map out this product, and I map out this service, how am I going to get people to buy and also scale my income while doing this, right? So we're going to talk about market research and my recent experience with market research as well too. I'm going to give you a little bit of a tip before we dive into actually creating the sold out offer, because a lot of people say, okay, so how do I actually do market research? What does that look like? What questions should I ask, right? And while the questions are going to depend on what your business model looks like, they're going to depend on your ideal client, they're going to depend on what your audience needs from you. Overall, I'm going to give you like a few little tips for market research because I've done something recently that has worked really, really well for me. So a couple of weeks ago, I decided that I'm going to make it a non-negotiable in my business every, 90 days to do really hefty market research, because I think this is important. Even though I know my ideal client like the back of my hand, I know what they're struggling with. I know what they, are struggling with in their mindset. I know what they want and desire in their business as well too. It's always helpful to just do a, refreshed market research situation and really dive deeper into, okay, but what is my ideal client's like language? What language are they using? What ways are they saying in their tone of voice, like what they desire, right? Like, is my ideal client saying that they want 6-figure years, or are they saying something completely different? Are they just saying they want to sign more clients? Are they saying that they want freedom, or are they saying something completely different, right? And so just getting an idea of what people are desiring and struggling with in their own language will absolutely change the game in regards to marketing in your business. So if you have not already done this, what I would recommend that you do is you get on your Instagram stories and you post some questions. So, like maybe 4 or 5 slides, and you ask people what they're desiring in regards to your services right now. Ask them what they believe is the number one thing holding them back. You can ask them as well too to share any insight into what is happening behind the scenes in their life or in their business or whatever your niche, right? And just get really like real with your audience as well too, and be like, I'm not going to pitch you if you share this information with me, but we also want to give them something in return. So what I did is I asked these questions. I had about 5 or 6 slides, and then I told people that they would get a free hypnosis audio if they responded to those questions. And this would essentially like just be me sending them a link, right? So they're getting something for free of value in order to answer these questions. And so I got literally, guys, so many responses, like probably over, 30, like I couldn't even keep track of them. My DMs were blowing up because people were excited about the opportunity to have a conversation and to tell me about them while also getting something in return, right? So if you haven't done this in a long time, and even if you talk to your clients every single day and you hear from your clients that are in your world, like what they are struggling with, but you haven't done market research with your audience recently and the people that are actually following you and connecting with you on social media or, on your email list or whatever it is on your podcast, I would recommend that you do this and you actually offer something of value in return. So those of you that are actually listening to this episode, if you are, wanting a free hypnosis audio, or you're wanting to dive deeper into hypnotherapy, I'm actually still offering this deal where you can get a free hypnosis audio from me just simply by hopping into my DMs on Instagram, or even sending me an email and just letting me know that you're open to doing market research. This helps me so much, and it also will help you guys so much if you dive into this as well too, before you even go into like creating an offer, before you even go into marketing, before you even go into launching. So that is your first thing that I want you to hold yourself accountable to. That is the first thing that I want you to do. If you take anything from this episode, make sure that you are doing market research on a 30 to 60 to 90 day basis. And this is something that you're always, holding yourself accountable to doing. So I always say to my clients, like, are you actually taking your business seriously? And this is one of the reasons that I say that, because so many people, are just launching these offers, or just marketing, or just like throwing content out there. And they haven't even actually asked the people in their audience or the people in their space what it is that they want to see from them, or what it is that they're struggling with, or what it is that they're desiring, right? And this is one way that we can so easily start to really, really take our business very, very seriously, is just simply by hearing from the people that are already in our space what it is that they need help with, right? And so I want you to do this right now. Literally hit pause on this episode, go on your Instagram stories, go on your TikTok stories, go on your email list. I don't care where you go, but start offering some value for free to connect with people in your space, just to answer some questions so that you have this in a document to come back to throughout your launching, throughout your marketing. Again, this also connects us with people in our space. So I actually got multiple inquiries just simply from doing this, where people actually asked questions like, do you have 90-minute intensives available? Do you have, XYZ thing available? Or, hey, like I was actually just wanting to dive into hypnotherapy. So getting this free audio gives me the chance to like really feel into it and then come back to you and buy some sessions, right? So this actually sparked some conversations around sales as well too. So that's your first little thing that I want you to do. That's your first task when it comes to this episode is go do the market research right now. Press pause if you need to, come back to this, or just keep listening and get on your Instagram stories right now. Start asking people some questions. Now, when it comes to actually creating a sold out offer, there's a couple of things that I think personally are really, really important in creating sold out offers. And again, we're not even getting into the marketing strategy yet. We're not even getting into the launch strategy yet. We're literally doing the work that is required to sell out a launch. So this is all things that I do before I create a new offer. I look at the demand of this offer. Is this needed? Have I validated this with my audience? So a great way to do this is, again, through that market research. Have I validated it with my audience or with my current clients? Have I done the market research needed to create this offer? And even you can think deeper into that. Like, what are my ideal clients asking me about over and over and over again? So a great example of this is that, I know that my audience is pretty typically all scaling to six or multi-six figures in their business. They're solopreneurs, they're online service providers and or coaches. And something that I continually got asked when I only had one group program that was very small scale and for newer entrepreneurs was, okay, but how did you scale your mindset coaching business to over six figures, right? And so I knew that there was this demand because people kept asking me. They also asked me a lot about hypnotherapy. They asked a lot about how they can in business work less and make a lot more, how I structure my schedule, because you guys know, if you ever hear me talk on Instagram, right, that I only work about 3 days a week. I always give myself Mondays and Fridays off. I only work 3 weeks out of the month, right? Like I've given myself a lot of spaciousness while still creating massive sales in my business. And so people were asking me about this a lot. And so I ended up creating a mastermind just simply from getting those questions. So my mastermind is Master Your Mind Mastermind. And that's literally what the mastermind is about, creating that freedom that you actually desire in business, and also hitting six or multi-six figures in sales. So I literally took what people were asking me for and created an offer out of it, and then had my highest launch to date. But I also did the market research. I also knew that the offer was needed. I also validated it with my audience, right? And so this is where I want you to start. The next thing that I always like to think about when it comes to creating offers is the passion and desire behind you and like the offer and your actual business. Like, are we actually going to sell something if we're not passionate about it, when it requires us being like front facing, when it requires us teaching, when it requires us like actually having conversations on a day-to-day with our clients, right? So if you're like, let's say hormone health coach, and you absolutely hate like teaching yoga, but all of a sudden you're launching a yoga program and every single day you're like, I hate this so much. Like, I don't even want to talk about yoga. I've said Shavasana 17 times and like, I'm just tired of it, right? Like, are you actually going to sell that offer? Or is it going to come across as like, I don't really know how she even feels about that, like energetically behind the scenes, right? So I always like to ask myself, like, what am I currently lit up by at the moment in my business? Just kind of checking in with myself to see, is this actually even something that I want to launch or that I want to offer? And utilizing like my current momentum and the way that I currently feel in my business and what is exciting me in order to guide whether or not I create a new offer. So again, if next week I decided to create an offer on story selling or on starting a podcast, I'm definitely not an expert in that, but let's say on starting a podcast, but that's not really where my passion lies. Is it going to be fun for me to create content around it? Is it going to be fun for me to talk about it? Is it going to be fun for me to sell it? Is it going to be fun for me to map out the launch for it? Absolutely not. So this is another piece to creating a sold out offer that I think we often miss. Another question I like to ask myself is, if I applied to do a TED Talk on something, what would I talk about? If you look at any of my offers and the way that my podcast even is, they all very much so align with things that I love to talk about, things that I want to talk about, and things that I get excited about, right? So that's a great way to even think about, like, where is my brand headed? If I could do a TED Talk on anything, what would that be? The next thing that I always like to tell my clients to think about is your experience. So where is your zone of genius, or what have you learned about past offers that will help you build or launch this one? So my first launch again was a group program. Then I launched one-on-one coaching, and then I launched another group program, and then I launched my mastermind. And I could take data from each of those launches and each of those offers to build my mastermind, right? To look at what I wanted to include in the mastermind, look at how I wanted to structure it, and look at also like how I wanted to launch it and what was most important when it came to speaking to this offer. This is another thing that I want you to think about as well too. Then when we get to actually building the offer, you've done the market research, you have the info, you know what you're excited about, and you're actually getting to build the offer. This is when we think deeper about who is it for, what does it serve, what does it transform, what do our ideal clients want, what do they desire? You should have that information because you've done the market research. Why do they need it? What are they going through? How do you deliver this information, right? What is your framework? And where are the clients now and where do they desire to be? Making sure that your program or your offer fills that gap, right? So this is just the basis or like the bare bones of creating an offer. And another way that I like to do this as well too, when I'm thinking about creating sold out offers, is actually taking myself through my ideal clients day to day from morning to night. What are they experiencing on the day to day? And I've said this before in episodes as well too, but literally just taking a moment to map out what are they experiencing on a day to day in regards to my offer. So let's say that you're a health coach and you help women clear up acne, like hormonal acne naturally or something along those lines. You know that if you think about your ideal client's day from morning to night, they're probably getting ready for work and maybe they feel, a little bit embarrassed by their acne on their skin or something. They're trying to cover it up with foundation, and it just obviously doesn't look good when you try and do that, right? And they're feeling kind of, bad about themselves. They haven't normalized acne, even though we all know that it's very normal, right? But they're having these thoughts because they just want clear skin. So you can take yourself through that and then obviously utilize this information for marketing down the line. So you make your ideal clients feel seen. So I like to do this even when I'm creating an offer as well too, because it helps me understand like how I'm going to tell my offer story down the line, how I'm going to structure my launch down the line. What information do I preemptively need to give my audience about this offer, right? Or what information do I need to start talking about in regards to this offer? So when I first launched my mastermind, again, I had gone through many launches in the past, but this was a new offer for me. I knew that because so many people had asked me like, Addison, how are you hitting these higher income months, but you're only working this much? How are you traveling somewhere new every month? How are you doing XYZ thing? I knew that my audience really wanted to hear about the freedom that I had created and like the real behind the scenes of what it actually takes to get to that point. And so I, again, knowing this, started telling stories behind the scenes of, or even just on my Instagram stories or on my posts on my Instagram about what it actually took for me to get there. So I talked about, how I went from burnt out working 12 to 15-hour days to creating this freedom where I only worked 3 days a week or took like 9 calls at the most a week, right? And only took 3 hours of calls a day or whatever, right? Like I started telling this story so people are like, okay, she's an expert in this. She got to this point, like I want to learn from her. And we kind of start plugging or almost like threading a little bit of this information and just like giving some insight. So this is something that you can also start doing right now once you've done the market research and you understand what it is that your ideal client is experiencing currently. You can start kind of telling the brand story behind offers that you're about to launch. So if you want like a little offer creation checklist, I always take my clients through this little checklist basically, and even myself. I'm like, okay, I know that my audience wants what I'm offering because I've done the market research and I validated my offer. This offer lights me up. I'm really excited to launch this offer. I've done the pre-work needed to launch this offer. I know that it's in demand through that market research, right? That kind of goes hand in hand. And I've identified exactly who this offer is for. If you've done these 4 things, you've done the market research, you've validated the offer, you know that it's needed, you know that people want it, you've had questions on it, and you also know what it transforms and how it serves your clients, and you're able to articulate that, you are going to have a sold out launch, but you're also going to make it that much easier for yourself when you go through the actual launching aspect of an offer, when you actually go through the marketing, when you actually go through the creation aspect of the offer, putting together deliverables, the sales page, all of the things, right? So I want you to really think about, do I know like the top things that my clients are struggling with? And do I know the top things that my ideal clients are desiring? And how does my offer help serve that gap? So I know that this is the information that you probably want to skip out on. You're like, I don't need the market research. I know my ideal client. I know my ideal client like the back of my hand. And you kind of want to skip out on it. But this is what you need to do in order to actually get to the point of selling out an offer. So I do not want you to skip that part. I don't want you to skip the market research. I don't want you to skip the offers. And again, I just gave you insight into how you can even begin to do market research literally today. I want you to make that a priority. So the next part of getting to the point of actually launching the offer is the mindset behind launching that offer. So we talked a little bit about this, but now one of the number one things that I often see happening in the online space when it comes to launching is that people get really, really nervous when things don't blow up initially when they're launching something. So this can happen with a $5 product, a $20 product. This can happen with, a $3 to $10 to $12 to $15 to $20,000 offer, but they will, start talking about it. They'll start launching it to their audience, let's say, even if it's a $5 product, and they have like one sale initially, or no one initially like bites the bullet. No one initially asks questions, and they think, okay, I've done the work needed to launch this offer, but why are people not buying like that, right? And so you freak out and then you kind of pull back. I know that you've all done this because I've even heard from clients that have had, $20 offers that they launch and sell, and they have one person buy. And instead of thinking like, wow, that's incredible that I had someone come into this offer and someone that's going to be served from this, it's like, oh my gosh, why did I not create 17,000 more sales, right? So this is one way that our mindset really likes to sabotage us, because it wants us to say like, ooh, this is a little bit uncomfortable. It's not exactly the way that I thought my launch would go. I wanted to blow up. I wanted this to be so easy and seamless and comfortable. And so you start to freak out and you think like, what's the point? Like, should I even sell this? Another way that this can come up is if you have launched something in the past, like let's say you've launched like a mastermind or a group program in the past and it didn't go necessarily exactly how you thought it was going to go. You maybe only sold a couple of spots instead of filling it up, or you didn't sell any spots or something like that. You had like a quote unquote failed launch. And so when you go to launch this thing again or to try again, you're kind of like, ooh, like it's really hard to create content on this thing, or like, ooh, like it's really hard to put the sales page together, or ooh, I don't know about that. Like, what if this happens again? And you're already preemptively again, like protecting yourself from that quote unquote failure. And so you'll have a hard time like creating content. You'll have a hard time showing up. You'll have a hard time doing the things that need to be done in order to actually prove yourself wrong and see massive success. And so, I think something that is interesting to think about in this regard is we see all of the posts online that are like, I made $150,000 in 6 seconds. And, I posted this one type of content and all of a sudden like 17,000 people are buying my offer, or, I make $99,000 passively on TikTok or whatever, right? Like we see all of these posts and really start to let it mean something about us because we're not at that level, right? So when you go to like launch the thing and you have all this noise in the back of your head where you're like, I should be able to post this one content and get 17 people inside in 5 seconds, or I should be able to post one video on TikTok and all of a sudden have all of these sales, or I should be making $100,000 months already, right? And you almost feel like you're already comparing yourself before you've even launched the offer. So this is something that I see stops a lot of people from continuing to show up. And here's the thing that I want to like really hit home for you, like as you're listening to this, is that when it comes to the post that you're seeing where, I made $150,000 in this amount of time, or, I posted this one type of content and 17 people bought and I made this amount of money, or, I made $1 million in like 6 seconds, right? Like you see those posts. And what I want you to remember is that you're only seeing about 20% of what is actually going into that, maybe even less. Like you're not seeing the full picture, right? Like social media is a highlight reel. So I want you to remember that. You're not seeing the struggles that are going on behind the scenes. You're not seeing the comparison. You're not seeing the imposter syndrome. You're not seeing the way that these people have to hold themselves through the situations or different situations in their business. You're not seeing what they're dealing with behind the scenes, right? And you're not seeing that they're having to hold themselves through hard moments too, but you're also not seeing, maybe the time and effort and work that was put into launching these things. So something that really shifted my mindset around launching and around results in business was talking to a couple of different mentors who told me, yeah, like now I have $1 million business, or now I make $100,000 months. But when I was still working corporate and I had started my business, I was going live every single morning at like 7:30 in the morning to build brand awareness, or I was doing a masterclass every single week for free and like pouring into my community. Or, I paid for an engagement specialist to build community for me for years. Or, I was posting content every single day, even when I was working this 9 to 5, right? Like, you're not really seeing the work that's going behind the scenes. And so I want you to remember that. And I want you to, again, just ask yourself, am I actually taking my business seriously? Like, am I expecting that I just make this sale for $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, but I'm not willing to put in the work. I'm not willing to post the content every single day. I'm not willing to, have failed launches. I'm not willing to go live every single day. I'm not willing to hold a masterclass or host a masterclass. Like, I'm not willing to do the things that it actually takes to be successful. And so I think that, just notice as I'm saying this, like, and you can even ask yourself, am I actually taking my business seriously? Or notice also if you launch or sell things and have a tendency to pull away when things aren't going the way that you want them to, or if you have the tendency to kind of like take a step back when things aren't going the way that you want them to, and you have a hard time continuing to show up. This is a great way to notice if you have stress responses in business. So typically, like, kind of pulling away is a little bit of a flight response, right? And you're not going to see success this way. So you can ask yourself and do this little exercise that I'm about to give you just to help really get a handle on your mindset and really like allow yourself to have the tenacity to continue to show up in business, even if things aren't working or even if things feel hard. So I like to do this exercise, and I do this with my clients as well too. I always challenge them to do this when it comes to mindset, because it just gives you an idea of like where you're starting in regards to your mindset, like what is happening in your mindset that is guiding your behavior. Because we'll say this a million times on this podcast, guys, but you have to remember that our thoughts do not create our reality. Our subconscious beliefs do, but our thoughts also create our reality when we attach a behavior to them or when we align ourselves with them. So if I have the belief that, what if this offer doesn't sell out? Like, that's just a thought, but it doesn't become a part of my reality until I let that thought guide or dictate my behavior, or until I let that thought change how I'm showing up in my business. So if I have that thought and then I say, well, because of that, it's just not worth me creating the content, or it's just not worth me showing up, or it's just not worth me going live, then that's when we have an issue. We've attached ourselves to that thought and we've made that a part of our reality or a part of our story. And so just remember that as I'm taking you through this exercise. You can even ask yourself, again, on top of, am I actually taking my business seriously? Asking yourself, am I attaching, myself to these thoughts that I'm having or to these fears, and letting that dictate my behavior? Because that will give you a great indication as to whether or not you have the killer mindset that we're talking about in regards to launching. So what I want you to do is I want you to notice what thoughts you have over the next week about yourself, about selling an offer, about hitting a goal, about hitting your goals in 2024. Even just as far as like selling out spots in your offers, or selling out your retainers, or selling out your group program that you wanted to offer, selling out one-on-one coaching, whatever it is. I just want you to notice what thoughts you have around selling, around launching, and around selling out your offers and hitting your goals. So the thoughts that you repeat are literally shaping who you are. So just remember that. So what thoughts do you have about launching? Notice them. Even write them down. What thoughts do you notice about selling? Write them down. How are these thoughts guiding your behavior? Just taking note of your behavior. And again, remember, your thoughts do not create your reality, but the way that you connect with them do. So the way that you let them guide your behavior do. So when I say your behavior, I mean like how you show up, what you're doing behind the scenes, what you're selling, if you're allowing yourself to sell every single day, right? So just getting some insight into what I mean by behavior, even asking yourself right now, like, am I letting my fears and my thoughts dictate my behavior? And that's a great indication that, one, you could utilize hypnotherapy in your business to get beyond this and really bridge the gap between where you are now and your next level in business, whether that's more money, whether whether that is, better clients, whether that is more consistency or confidence, whatever it is, that's a great indicator. If you're having a hard time moving through those behaviors, that you could really benefit from hypnotherapy, because that will actually get into the subconscious mind and change the thoughts at a subconscious level so that we're able to create new behaviors. But it's also a great indicator as well too that you'd really benefit from a mindset coach versus like just diving more into strategy in your business. Because likely at this point in your business, you already know how to show up. You already know what content to create. You already know that you need to be selling every single day. You probably already know that you need to be on other platforms in your business as well too. But really where you might be struggling is allowing your behavior or your thoughts to dictate your behavior, or having moments where it's really hard for you to show up, or you feel like you're fighting yourself on a day-to-day. I know, because I know my ideal client, that is something that you're experiencing even when it comes to content, right? Even when you really want to sell something, you can have moments where you feel like you're just like fighting to get yourself to show up, or fighting to get yourself to stay consistent. And this is ultimately your brain and your mind and those thoughts that I'm talking about trying to keep you safe and dictate your behavior to follow a consistent pattern with what you've experienced in the past. So our brain doesn't actually want us to succeed. It doesn't actually want us to hit our goals, because that can be uncomfortable to put yourself out there like that, right? So do this exercise. Connect with me on Instagram. Let me know what you find over the next week as you're doing this. And also, I want to see all of your guys' little market research things on your Instagram stories or in your emails, or even ask me. I'm happy to do market research, right? So we've got a couple things that we're working on before we've even dove into the launch strategy. These are just like little things that we need to do in order to make sure that we're successful. And if you're struggling to talk about your offers consistently or repeatedly, I want you to come back to this episode and commit right here with me here that you're going to stick out a full launch. You're going to show up regardless of what is happening in your physical reality, and commit to being consistent so that you can, when I ask you, like, are you taking your business seriously? You can say, yeah, I am. Like, I am taking it seriously. I'm showing up. I'm doing the work. I'm, doing what needs to be done in order to create those results, right? And I'm not holding myself back, right? Like I'm doing the thing. So I want you to remember, again, that launching, brand awareness, people buying things like crazy takes time to build awareness. It takes time to get known. It takes time to, do that work behind the scenes and get yourself out there. And it also takes connection. So when you launch something and people don't buy immediately, or it takes a minute, or you have to keep showing up and selling, I want you to commit to that and knowing that that's where the results come from. Okay. And then before we dive into the strategy, which I know that's why you're here, you want to hear about the strategy, you want to hear about the behind the scenes of launching. You want to hear about selling out your offer. You want to hear about what should I do if I'm an online service provider? Should I be launching or should I not be launching? We're also going to just talk for just a moment about signs that you can utilize hypnotherapy throughout your launch, and will actually see tons and tons of success by doing so. And if you are like, girl, you've already been speaking my language, I already know that I have struggles with my mindset and showing up consistently and continuing to do the work and taking my business seriously, you can check out the links below or just message me on Instagram and ask me about hypnotherapy. Truly, this is the key to hitting that next level. It's not strategy. It's not doing more. It is not, consistently like trying to expand in getting on more platforms, right? It's getting beyond those subconscious beliefs and tightening up how we're showing up in business, and tightening up what work we're doing behind the scenes, and tightening up, and allowing ourselves to get uncomfortable. And that's where the growth happens. So definitely send me a DM if you want to talk about hypnotherapy, but I'm going to also just mention some signs that you could utilize it. So first of all, I notice a lot of people focus on the behind the scenes of their business. They constantly want to make like a sales page better. They feel like they need to update things constantly. They want to tweak things. They want to archive posts. They want to do like the behind the scenes work instead of showing up and selling. That's a great indicator that your subconscious mind is blocking you. Basically, you're trying to deflect by doing anything outside of what actually moves the needle forward. So again, if you're constantly behind the scenes and you're like tweaking things and moving things around and you're finding yourself doing like busy work, but not actually getting anything done, not actually producing results. It's a great indicator that you have a subconscious block, some sort of subconscious fear, and you could utilize hypnotherapy. Another thing that I see a lot of people experience is that they have a hard time creating content, and not in like I have nothing to talk about way, or I don't know what to talk about in order to create a sale way, but in a I have so much resistance towards creating any content at all. Like you'll find yourself like, okay, I know that I could talk about this, or I could talk about this, or I could talk about mindset, or I could talk about business strategy, right? But when it actually comes to sitting down and creating it, even if you have the strategy, you have a hard time like constructing the posts. You have a hard time actually getting everything put out there. And you have a hard time or like sit there for hours and creating posts, or, you can't batch create content because it takes you so long, or you have a hard time writing a caption, or again, it's just that like feeling of resistance of, I know this is what I need to do to actually move the needle forward, but I'm having a really hard time doing it. Again, that's a great indicator that you have a subconscious block. Another thing that I see a lot of people experience is that they struggle to show up on stories or on lives or show face to camera on TikTok, or again, on stories or lives. That is something that a lot of people really struggle with. And this is another way that our subconscious mind is protecting us, because we have a fear of being seen. Sometimes when you do this as well too, you might notice like physiological responses in the body. So like shaking, your face getting flushed, you might notice sweating, right? Because it's really scary and you're putting yourself in an uncomfortable position, and it's not comfortable to allow yourself to be seen by hundreds of thousands of people, right? But you might notice that those things feel scary. And so instead of just doing it and pushing through the fear, or allowing yourself to do it afraid, you just don't do it at all. So you stop, say, okay, this is the week I'm going to be consistent on TikTok. I'm going to do it. And you don't. Or you say, okay, this is the week I'm going to go live. I'm going to hold myself accountable to that. And you don't create the consistency, right? That's another great indicator that you could utilize some tailored hypnotherapy or tailored mindset support. Another way that this might come up is like master classes. You might have a really hard time doing master classes, or stop yourself from doing them because they feel so scary. Another way that we do this, or self-sabotage in regards to subconscious blocks, is we worry about money regardless of how many sales we have coming in. So you might feel yourself every single day like worried about money, stressed about money, or having the experience where you wake up already thinking about money, or you create a sale but you're like, ooh, that's not enough. Like I want more money, right? But you're stressed about it. That's another great indicator of a subconscious block coming up in regards to money. And when you don't feel safe spending money, or you don't feel safe around money, you also don't feel safe receiving it. And so this is another great indicator, again, that you could utilize hypnotherapy in your business, or to exceed your launch expectations. Another tricky little like subconscious block that comes up, which is always so interesting to me, because we say all the time, right? Like, I want to get to the point of making more in my business without necessarily doing more, is you sell and you sell and you sell and you sell and you do more and you do more, and you get on TikTok and you do all the things, and you're like pushing and pushing and pushing to the point of burnout. But you overall have a hard time converting and creating sales, because you're likely in the do more, do more, do more mode, and you already feel overwhelmed. So your brain and body and, just the situation you're in doesn't feel safe. And so it's not going to feel safe to create sales, because to you, that means, oh, I have to do everything that I'm already doing. But on top of that, I also have to serve these clients, right? So you might have a hard time actually creating sales in that sense, because you've not created spaciousness. So that's another great indicator that you could utilize hypnotherapy to really expand and get to the next level in your business. So now that we've talked all about mindset, and I know you're like, oh, dang, I need to message you because I need hypnotherapy and I need to dive into it and actually try it. And I think that that's the key to hitting my next level. It's not the strategy. So I think that the strategy is actually the funnest part. I think that creating content, being on social media, having fun in regards to like creating the content and allowing ourselves to have fun with video and allowing ourselves to have fun talking about what we're talking about is the best part of all of it. The strategy gets to be easy. The strategy gets to be simple. The strategy gets to have fun. Where we get messed up in regards to launching or in regards to selling or in regards to creating results in our business is our mindset that tells us we're not good enough or an imposter, right? And so we've covered all of that. And diving into the strategy, I want to first talk about things that I would do to increase momentum throughout a launch. And then I want to break down a little bit of each part of a launch. So there's 3 different versions of what I like to call launching, or 3 different versions of launching that I personally have experienced in my business. And that looks like waitlist launching. There's also live launching, where we use some sort of live event to hype up the launch, like a masterclass, a challenge, some sort of live series. And then there's also evergreen launching, which I would not consider live launching, right? Because evergreen launching is simply just when you have the ability to have someone join your offer on a monthly basis, or basically at any time until spots are sold. So evergreen launching, you can think a lot about like, coaches and offers that you can join at any time, or you can join on a monthly basis, or even retainers are technically evergreen until spots are filled, right? They're always open, you're always selling, versus like a live event being there's a very clear open and close cart. There's a very clear, start and end date, and this thing might not be launched again for another 3 or 6 months or whatever, right? So the urgency is around join now, so that you can, get inside now, or you're going to have to wait another 3 or 6 months. There's definitely more urgency there, right? And so I have done all of the above. I've done evergreen launching. A lot of my offers are evergreen now, but I've done also all of the live launches, again, from waitlists to different challenges to master classes. And I'm going to give you some insight into what I have found the most helpful. And, over time, again, like what I have defaulted to in my business to continue to build momentum and to continue to sell out my launches. So I do see a lot of people that have done a lot of launches in the past start to get a little bit lazy, where they're like, I don't need a masterclass anymore. I don't need to warm up my audience. I don't need to, host this series or offer free value to my audience, because there's so many people in here. They know who I am. They know what I'm selling, right? And I just want to remind you not to get lazy as time goes on. Even if you have a massive audience, even if you've proven to yourself that you can sell in the past, it's still really helpful throughout a launch to look at each of the pieces of the strategy, to plan it out, to think about, do I want to host a live event? To think about, am I turning this, into an evergreen offer down the line? To think about, do I want to have a wait list? Do I want to hype this up with a wait list? Essentially, all of these strategies, what we're doing is we're hyping people up. We're getting them excited to be involved, to be inside. We're creating urgency through spots and or through the cart closing. And we are, taking people through different phases of a launch to give them different discounts and stuff as well too. So a great example of how you would do this is if you have a waitlist launch. If you're, building momentum through a waitlist, you would have a waitlist time period where you hype up the waitlist, you get people on the waitlist, and that waitlist gets exclusive access to whatever deals you're dropping, or gets exclusive access to the first spots that are in the program. So you would essentially hype up the waitlist, spend time on your marketing, getting people on the waitlist, continuously selling, the waitlist, continuously saying, enter your information here so you can get on the waitlist and get the early bird deets. And then when you actually go to launch the program, the first thing that you would do in your pre-sale phase where you're offering a discount is actually launch to the waitlist versus launching to your full Instagram or launching to your full email list. We're actually just launching to the waitlist. So again, this creates exclusivity. This creates hype and momentum because people are like, oh, well, I want to see what this is about. So of course I'm going to get on the wait list, or like, oh, I'm intrigued, but I also want to be, a part of what's happening behind the scenes. So I'm going to join the wait list, and they start to, get excited. And so then from there, once you've sold to the wait list, I've had moments where I have completely sold out a launch to the wait list before I've even launched it to the public. And again, that's the vibe of a wait list launch is you get on the wait list so you can get a spot. Get on the wait list so you don't miss out. And from there, if you don't fill spots, you can launch it to the public, right? And so I would consider the portion of the launch where you hype to the waitlist is the early bird phase. The portion where you launch to the waitlist and you give them a discount is the pre-sale phase. The point where you then open to the public is the public cart or public sale phase. And then the part where you close the cart is the close cart phase. So those are our 4 phases, just to give you an idea of how I'm walking you through this. There should always be 4 phases. There should always be early bird, pre-sale, open cart, and close cart. And we can even continue to sell after close cart to pertain to any people that are getting FOMO or are like, oh, dang, I missed out. I should have joined this, or I should have gotten inside. So we would do the exact same thing with a masterclass launch. Essentially, we would hype the masterclass. We would talk about the masterclass. We get people in the masterclass. We get people, live with us. And then towards the end of the masterclass, we actually promote the program. So I did this the first time that I launched my mastermind. I know I've referenced that a lot, but I did this the first time that I launched the mastermind, and I hosted a masterclass actually on launching and on 5-figure launches. And then towards the end of the masterclass, I opened up the cart to the mastermind. And these people that were a part of the masterclass got an exclusive discount for, I think we did 7 days, but you had to actually be a part of the masterclass to get that discount. So again, we're building exclusivity. We're like bringing people along for the fun of it, but giving that exclusivity so there is some urgency around selling. So the people that were in the masterclass got a discount for 7 days, and then we opened to the public again. The incentive here is join the masterclass to gain a spot to get access to what's happening behind the scenes or what I'm launching. And then you can open to the public with the remaining spots that are available and then close the cart. So you can kind of see again how we're going through these 4 phases of the launch. Now, this is just the overarching strategy, those 4 phases, right? And so you also want to think about like early bird being like the time period where you don't fully drop all the details, where you're like, you're going to want to be a part of my masterclass, or you want to be a part of this wait list because you get this exclusive details, but I'm not giving you all the details yet. And then we think about the pre-sale phase being like, okay, we're dropping a little bit more. People are getting more access if you're a part of this exclusive event or a part of the wait list. And then the public phase being like, we're dropping all the details. We're pertaining to all of the buyer types, as well as like fully giving access to everything that's involved within this launch and fully giving the full public the ability to join. So the full email list, full Instagram, full TikTok, right? Versus this exclusive group, and then closing the carts. And the reason that we do it this way is, again, I've said exclusivity, but we're giving people access to something that is exclusive. And if we think about the way that people and humans work, is we're essentially giving them a behind the scenes pass to get a sneak peek or a look at what we're doing, right? And so those are the 4 phases. And then if we get even deeper into that, then, beyond just those 4 phases, beyond just when you're opening and closing the cart and when you're offering a discount and what you're using to build or hype up momentum or to create momentum, is we're also diving deeper into the marketing strategy at a level that's like, or depth that's even more so beyond just these 4 phases, where we're looking at the buyer types that are included in this launch, where we're looking at subconscious motivators. So what's actually motivating people to buy. And we're going to have a whole podcast episode on that. So stay tuned for that. And we're also looking at the buyer journey of where people are at in awareness versus not aware of what we're offering. And since launching is something that can be pretty overwhelming the first time you do it, I'm going to give you some insight just into what I personally would make sure that you have and what you do not need in regards to your first launch. So I think a lot of people think they need some, crazy sales page, or they need some crazy website, or they need, XYZ thing in order to launch their first product. And in reality, the first time that we launch something, the first time that we put an offer out there, really what we need is just an Instagram audience, or a email list, or a TikTok audience, some sort of audience that knows what we're selling, that we've brought to the awareness phase of knowing what we do, what we have to offer, and they want what we're selling. So we've done all of the pre-offer, checklist. We don't need a website. We do need some sort of sales page or some sort of checkout checkout page. We do need to have obviously the inclusions of the offer, the length, the price, the deliverables of that offer as well too, putting that all together, which can be done through a platform like a course platform like Teachable or Kajabi, or it can be done literally in just over Zoom, right? Where you send out replays, or it can be done on Thrivecart. Thrivecart is my favorite, right? We don't need some crazy Kajabi build out. We don't need to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on a website and on Kajabi. We also need deliverables for the actual launch. So story slides, feed graphics, possibly a sales page, like I mentioned, whether or not you want to go that route, a checkout page, maybe an application, a contract is super, super important. Those things to protect ourselves and the legalities behind it. And then we also need some way that we're going to connect with our potential clients as well too. So whether that is Slack or that is Google Drive and Zoom, or that is super simple, like just over Voxer instead of doing something like Kajabi. Again, we get to keep it super, super simple. And then we want to also create that timeline with the 4 phases of the launch. So understanding when we're actually going to launch the offer, when we're actually going to close the cart, and then how many people we're going to allow inside. Now, when it comes to launch timelines, I think that everyone wants to like rush through a launch. They want to give themselves like 2 weeks or 4 weeks, but I would actually recommend that when you are launching something for the first time, that you give yourself a lot of space. So I am someone in launches that loves spaciousness. I love like having a month or so to get people inside. I love taking that through a very slow process. I love having lots of spaciousness. And so I wouldn't recommend that for your very first launch, you only give yourselves 2 weeks, or that you only give yourself, a small amount of time. I would actually recommend that you give yourself a lot of space and time to evaluate the launch, to see like, are people moving? Do I need to adjust my marketing? Do I need to tweak things in order to increase my sales? Like, what can I do to build additional momentum, right? So give yourself that spaciousness. And once you have the timeline of the offer, you've given yourself that space and you've kind of mapped out all of the things that are included. You can also think again, like, what launch strategy do I want to take myself through in regards to this launch? How do I want to increase momentum? Do I want to do a live series? Do I want to host a masterclass? Do I want to do a challenge? Do I want to, maybe launch a recorded masterclass and funnel people into this? Do I want to hire a lead gen specialist so that I have someone that's doing that lead generation for me? Do I want to get on an additional platform? Do I want to send out private invites to people that I think would be a good fit for this program? Do I want to send out invites to my already, clients that are already in my space, right? So just thinking about those things, but realizing it gets to be really, really simple. So overall, in my mastermind, this is something that we dive into. So not only do I give you, templates, and do I give you like marketing templates and frameworks and things to walk yourself through, but I also give you a 6-figure, what we call a 6-figure ClickUp template that actually helps you map out these launches to a T from start to finish, depending on like what your audience looks like. There are tons of worksheets as well too, getting connected with your ideal client, your sold out offers, and mapping out every tiny little detail that goes into that. And so if you are currently, again, on your journey to 6 or multi-6 figures, that's a great space for you if you want to dive in. You can also look at these things in my membership as well to get access to that ClickUp template, get access to more insight into launching and selling and marketing as well too. So overall, just remember that there's a lot that goes behind the scenes of a launch. And we didn't even go that in depth into the strategy, right? Because we're going to come back to that in some later episodes. But, we kind of mapped out the 4 phases of the launch and understanding like what that can actually entail throughout the timeline of a launch. But, just a reminder to not believe the content that says, sell out your launch with this specific thing. Just realize there are so many pieces at play that go behind the scenes, but you don't need anything crazy. You don't need the crazy sales page. You don't need the crazy website. Literally, if you do the work behind the scenes with making sure that your offer is validated and you have a strategic planned out launch, you will see success in your launching. So, just to give you some insight, even for me with my first couple of launches that I took myself through, I had a lead gen specialist for over 2 years that was working for 30 to 60 minutes per day in my business on my Instagram, as well as other platforms, just connecting with people. to build that brand awareness and to build relationships and build connections. I also spent an entire year building brand awareness through hosting free masterclasses every single month. Once a month, we were hosting a free masterclass to really build a community, right? I've given away hundreds of hypnotherapy audios as well as probably hundreds of free hypnotherapy sessions as well too, just to build connections, provide value, and build momentum, get testimonials to increase the people that are in my space, right? Again, you're only seeing the front facing when you hear, $80,000 launch or whatever, $100,000 launch. You're not really seeing the behind the scenes of that connection that I'm building with people to actually create that amount of momentum. So remember that. Focus on impact and connection, and I promise that your business will create massive momentum just by focusing on these things. The mindset and very simple strategy is all that you need. So overall, again, if launching feels overwhelming to you, but you know that you need to do it and you're ready for support to launch your group program or launch anything along those lines in your mindset and strategy through the process of hitting your first six or multi-six figures, send me a DM on Instagram or connect with the pages below to actually just apply to work with me, or even send me an email. And then when it comes to launching as an online service provider, just remember that between coaching and online service providers, like the launch strategy might be a little bit different, right? It might look a little bit different. And I always like to tell my clients that are service providers, whether they are virtual assistants or OBMs or they are social media managers, you can almost think about launching from an evergreen place where you can still have a live launch, but you don't necessarily have an open and close cart. You just consider the amount of spots, the urgency behind the launching process. So you can still take yourself through those 4 phases. You can still take yourself through a full launch and just continuously market and sell with the amount of spots that you have left instead of the cart closing. So I think that is something to think about as well too. If you have any questions about that, you're welcome to connect with me. And overall, if you know that you need support in regards to your mindset or in regards to your strategy behind launching, the marketing strategy, planning out the full launch, the logistics behind the scenes, all of the minute details, and you're on the way to hitting your first 6 or multi-six figures, and you know that that's going to require you get a little bit more strategic and a little bit more spaciousness in your schedule and stuff as well too. You want to create more freedom, definitely send me a DM on Instagram or connect with me with the links below. And happy launching, guys.